Hi, I'm Dawn with K-Squared Technologies. Welcome to the launch of our monthly webinar training series. Today's session is getting started with Microsoft Teams. We encourage you to be actively involved in our Teams training. And so please share your questions using the Q&A feature in Zoom. You're welcome to ask questions throughout our training. Dan is going to be on the Q&A, so definitely let us know how we can help you with Microsoft Teams. We're going to reserve the chat for general communications for today's training. So I'd like to get an idea of your experience with Teams. Let's go ahead and just take a quick poll. Think for a minute where you are on a scale of 1 to 10. Perhaps you're just eager to learn. You might have some solid team skills. You might be very knowledgeable about many of those capabilities. Or perhaps you're even an aspiring superstar. So let's find out where you're at. I'll give you a few minutes here to answer this question. Excellent. We'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this gives you an idea of where we're at right now. And my goal here is that wherever your experience is, you're in the right place. So our goal is to help you to save time and to help you increase your knowledge of Microsoft Teams. Let's go ahead and continue. Thank you so much for that. And what do we have as our plan? What's our plan for today? What are we going to be looking at? Well, one of the things, and let's look at that. Actually, let's get an overview of Teams just really briefly, and then we'll go into more detail with that. So Teams is basically a portal, a place where we have collaboration that's available to us. It's a place where we can have chat, meetings and calendars, calls, audio and video calls, apps and files. And so that's what we're going to be exploring. We'll look at the Teams interface. We'll look at creating teams and channels, customizing teams, managing meetings, and working with files and apps. And let's go ahead. We want to look at this from the Microsoft Teams environment. And so here we have then our Teams environment. And I'd like to just give you just an overview of that interface, and certainly then an understanding as well of what we mean when we talk about teams. So we have teams within teams. Here we have then a team so a team is a collection of people and content and tools. It could be for a specific project or group. In this case, this is one for a company. It could be project-based. Here we have a project team, but it could also be departmental-based, sales and marketing. And our teams are made up of channels. So channels is really where the work gets done. And those channels could be by different topics as well, or specific work groups. So this is where we have our communication and where we can share files and even have meetings, audio and video calls. You can kind of think of like teams as like different houses, and each of those channels is rooms within those houses. The other thing to look at here too is that within those teams and within those channels, we'll see that there might have been some communication that takes place. So this can be helpful because you may not always be actively involved in, you may not have Teams open all the time. And so with that, then you can see, for instance, here in this general channel, and by the way, every team has a general channel. The general channel here has an indicator that there's some sort of activity. And so I can move to that to see that there might simply have been a message or something that's going on. And in this particular case, this has something called an @mention. And I'll show that to you in more detail, but an @mention is a great way for you to be able to call attention to a team, a channel, or an individual. And that's also a way to feel that someone can get notifications or that they won't miss that communication. So that's how that will be flagged within Teams for us. If there's something really significant or important, then that will be shown with the exclamation. And we see this, for instance, that a message has been marked as important. And so that's something as well that is helpful for us. And you can see that there's a lot of communication here. So the fact that we can at least see that is also helpful for us. So there's a number of different notifications, and we'll look at that in more detail as well. Anything that is bold is an indication to you as well that there has been some additional activity since the last time you were working with that. So let's go ahead then, and we'll come back in and dig into the teams and channels in more detail. But I want to give you an overview of the interface in Teams, because it's not just the teams and channels. There's a lot more that is taking place. One of the things that can be really helpful is activity. Activity is the first part of this navigation bar that we have on the left-hand side. And with that, this is going to tell us then what we might have missed. And then it can tell us, it doesn't matter what teams this is taking place in, what channels, we can actually move right to that if we want to be able to view that conversation. And so this is one of the first places. And then of course, chat. This is for our informal communications that might not need to be organized within Teams, might not need to be part of those channels. And we can see here that there was an indicator that I might have missed something. And so that was shown in bold. And then we can view anything that we might have missed within chat. So this is often a very active place for us within Teams. We also then have our calendar. And this is then the good thing to know about our calendar is this is synchronized with Outlook. And so this is going to be a place where you can not only see what's coming up, but you can even schedule meetings directly from Teams. And that can be helpful so that you don't feel that you're working with so many different applications. And that's one of the values of thinking about Teams as really a portal for so much of your activity. If it's something that is enabled, then calls is a place where you have the option of being able to have video calls and possibly even work with voicemail. Additionally, we have files. This is the place where we can see any files that have been shared by our teams, and this is something that gives us an easy access, and I'll show you as well how we can get to this in our teams and channels as well. And then additionally, our ... we see this throughout the Teams interface. That really means there's more options. This is where we can add other applications or apps. Additionally, at the top here, we have what's called the command box. I'll show you more about that as we wrap up this morning. But this is where we can do search, and be able to work more efficiently within the team's environment. So let's go ahead and explore a little bit more about working with teams and channels. I did want to share that there's some handy keyboard shortcuts to navigate between these different areas. Control 1, for instance, takes us right to activity. Control 2 is chat. Control 3 for teams. Control 4 for our calendar. So you can see the sequence for that. Control 5 for calls, Control 6 for files. Now these are based upon the order that you see these options in your navigation bar. The thing to know about that is that although these options can be rearranged, not really something that you need to consider, but those shortcuts are based upon that order or that sequence. So let's talk a little bit more about working with teams. One of the things to know about creating and working with teams is that first of all, in most organizations, you probably have all the teams that you need. They probably have already been created, and it's also good to know that here at K², we can create teams and channels for you as part of our services. So I'll give you a sense of how you can build your own teams or maybe just create your own channels, but know that that's something that we can do for you as well. So that's another option for you. And it's a good idea to know too is that you don't want to have an overwhelming number of teams. You probably already have something that's set up that would work for that purpose, but it is a way to organize and get more specific about a particular communication. And so it might be that just adding a channel is all that you need to do. One of the things that is helpful is that if there are teams that are available to you, it might be that those are available at the very bottom of your screen for you to be able to join. I'm just having a little bit of a screen, there we go. So you have this join or create team, and this is certainly in larger organizations, this is a way for you to join or create a team that is, and we'll come back to this. So this is what happens sometimes with live training. We have join or create a team. This is a way for us to be able to access certain teams that are available to us, but it may be that you already have been added as part of those teams. There are teams can be set up with as public or private, and we'll explore that in more detail as well. So let's go ahead and in this case, what I want to do is create a team. So at least you can see the idea of how this is built. And in creating this team, there's two options here. One is that we could build a team from scratch. And the other is that it might be something that we have from an existing team. And so, for instance, if we already have a structure for a project team, and now we're going to have another project that we're rolling out, then in that case, one of the things that we could do with that is that we could build it from that. That is, it would then have the channels and the structure. But in this case, we're going to build a team from scratch. So you can see that the options here are private, public, or organization-wide. So an organization-wide would be then something that would be for your general communications and something that's created where everybody is added to that. Public means anyone can join, but they're not automatically added. Or private, they would need to be invited or they would need permission to join. So in this case, I'm going to create a private team, and it's going to be for a project. And the description is simply gives us a little bit more information for the people that are viewing that. I will go ahead and create. At this point then, we can add the people that would be part of it. Now, it depends upon what the options are within your organization. By default, it would only be internal. Sometimes we can add external guests, but that's something that has to be enabled. And so I'll add, and you can see as I start typing someone's name, anyone in the organization that matches that would then pop up. So this makes it easier for me to be able to find them. And we'll add one more person. All right. So now I've started to build my team. One of the things to know, whether or not you're creating a team or you already have existing teams, is that there are 3 different roles. One of the roles is owner. So this is where you have the most power. Owner simply means that the owner can add people to the team, they can delete the team, they can manage very specific things about it. A member, you're part of the team, you can create channels and you can be actively involved with it, but you wouldn't have all of the full management capabilities to it. An owner could also invite guests, so external guests, if that is something that's enabled for you. In this case, each one of these people currently is just a member, but I'd like to add Lynn, since she's going to be involved extensively in this project. I'm going to change her role from member to owner. And then we'll go ahead and close. So now I have this team, and it is part of many other teams that I am working with. In this case, this is one of the things to know is it's from a management perspective, is that even if you do not, even if you're not creating teams, you can actually take a team that's more important to you and drag it up in your list so that you have easier access to it. So now I have my company team, I have my project team that I'm also working with, and here's my new evergreen project team. So you can drag those up and down so that you can give those priority. It's also an option to even hide a team, or even if you're an owner, to archive a team. But for now, we'll go ahead and look more at how we can then work within a team. So I want to just pause here. As we mentioned before, if you have questions, please use our Q&A feature that's available to you. And I'm not seeing any questions at this point, but please do let us know. Okay. Let's go ahead then and look at some of the communication. When a team is created, by default, it gets a general channel. And the general channel is exactly that. It's for general communications. It should not be a place where you share reports or have real specific communications about an element of a project. That would be best handled in a channel. That is, we want to organize things in a way that's helpful. So for this one, I'm going to create a new conversation. And whether it's a conversation in a team or it's a conversation that we have in chat, we have some capabilities here. And these are things that you probably have explored in teams, but if not, go ahead and look at those. That is, you could apply formatting, add an attachment, add emojis, have some fun. Also GIFs, stickers. We also have the stream option, which is the video that we can work with within Teams for video and chat messages. We can even share praise. So for this one, I'll keep it really simple right now. And I can just hit enter. And this perhaps has happened to you before. You realize, oops, I have a spelling error, or I have something else that I meant to add to this. And the nice thing to know about Teams, whether it's in chat or it's in a channel, is you can edit your own messages. So you don't have to follow it up with, oops, I meant to say this, or here's the file I forgot to attach. So that's a really nice component of working with Teams. So how do we edit this? Well, we can just hover over that message. And if this was, even if this was someone else's message, you would have the option to be able to add reactions. And that's another way for you to be able to add communication to this. But if it's your message, then we also have this ... the 3 ellipses. So this is something we see for more options. And from here, I'll choose that I want to edit the message, but we noticed that we could even delete it if we just changed our mind. So you can only edit your own messages, can't edit someone else's. You can edit it as many times as you want. And in this case then, I'll edit this, fix that spelling error, and maybe I also want to add a little bit more excitement to that, so I'm going to add an emoji to that. And I'll tell everyone how thrilled I am. And at this point then I can enter or even use the tools over on the right-hand side as well. Let's go ahead then and hit enter. And we now have this message that we have fixed, that we have repaired. And so in that case then, let's go ahead and continue with our work. And I want to share with you then a few things about how to manage a team. What are some things that we can do? And then we will also look at how we can add additional channels to that and even customize those channels with files and other options with them. So let's look at this particular, at managing a team. And that is, this is something that might be more likely. That is, you don't need to be, adding more and more and more teams, but to understand what's going on in the current team. Okay. And in this case, I'll once again go to the more options, but I could also right click here. So this gives me different options. It gives me the same options, but it's 2 different ways to get there. And in this case then, one of the things that you'll see here is adding a channel that's available whether you're a member or an owner. Only the delete the team would be available if you were an owner. And that's something that I would encourage you not to do that. And that is, archiving means that you have that historical information. But if, let's say you were added to a team and you really don't need to be part of that, you would have the option to leave the team. So for this one, what I simply want to do is I want to see who's part of the team. And when I come in to manage the team, then I can see, well, who are the owners and who are any members or guests. And that is also a place for us to see a little bit of a status. That is, this little icon next to them will tell you something about their availability. And that would be more real time in your own teams for that. So this is one of the ways that we can then work with it. Now, we also could have, just from that initial option, we could have added a member from there. But I'll go ahead and add a member here. And I want to add one more person. I'll add him. And I'd like him to be an owner as well. It's a good practice for you to have more than one owner for a team. And that is primarily because as things change, For instance, there might be people that are brought into the project that are no longer involved with that. It's good to have more than one person that's available to make changes to the team as needed. This is also a place where we could check out our channels and make other changes to how this channel, this team works for us. At this point though, all I want to do now is go back to my general channel. And we have another way that we can communicate. And that is by creating something called an announcement. Now, in addition to some of the fun options that we also have this formatting choice. And this formatting option is where we can have a little bit more robust communication. That is something that has bold or bullets or anything, you know, we can change the font size and things like that. So that's something for you to explore if you want to be able to have it be a little bit more detailed. But in addition here, this can not only be just a new conversation, but it could be a different kind of conversations, what we call an announcement. And so in this case, I'm going to welcome Nestor. And simply say, and we even have some formatting that we could add to this as well. But once we send this, then this is actually flagged as an announcement, and you'll see some icons related to that. So this is also an appropriate use of your general channel in working with that. So know that you have this flexibility whether you're in chat or working with the channel with that. And let's go ahead. I just want to just check in. And any questions? I'm not seeing those, but let us know if you have any questions, anything that we can help you with. I hope that just means that you're enthralled. So let's go ahead then and look at creating a channel. And this is something that you might more likely to do. But as I mentioned at K-Square, we can set up all of this for you. So it isn't something you have to do, but at least if you know how it can be done. And so once again, I'll go to the ... And excellent, thanks. I have a question. How long did the message stay in the chat? It is, well, it's essentially say forever. So it is archived there, and it is part of that thread. For this team, what I want to do is add a channel. And this is going to be a design channel. And one of the things that we have here for this channel, it's accessible to everyone on the team. I'll show you as well that we could set up a private channel, but this is the option that we want to have for this. Automatically show this channel in everyone's channel list. And if it's not for a specific element of this, then that's usually a good option here. And let's go ahead and add that. Excellent. So anyone who's part of the team would have access to this design channel as well. And by default then, this is then where we can have more focused conversations. And so this is often our what we would have, every team would have at least one, if not multiple channels. And one of the things that can be helpful to know is that with so many different possible ways to communicate, how can you make it easier to reach out to someone or to mention someone that you would like to know about the communication? So we have something called @mentions. And @mentions is an @ And you may be very familiar with those in social media platforms where if you use the @ symbol, then you can flag someone. And then they would be more likely to see. It creates a notification for them. And so our @mentions can be an @ and the person's name, @ and the team name, @ and the channel name. And in this case, I will do @, and you can see right away any of my team members pop up, so I could just pick them from the list. And in this case, though, I'm going to say design. So even though it's taking place in the design channel, now I'm calling attention to them, but it could be also the team name as well. So I'm simply giving them a heads up about something that might be happening. This might be a way to communicate certain deadlines. And so then what that will simplify the communication and also improve that. And the nice thing about this, we don't have to have all these email threads. We don't have to have all this back and forth in Outlook, for instance, where you're trying to communicate, hey everyone, and then somebody replies all, and now it's clogging up our inbox. We're able to bring the collaboration here to Teams so that we can have it be much more focused, and we also have the history of what's taking place as well in working with us. So that's one of the things to keep in mind as well. So one of the things that will happen too is that there will be, you will see, though, as I showed you earlier, kind of a red circle that shows up next to that. So once this @mention takes place, then that will show up next to whatever that channel is to give you an idea that you've had that @mention, but that also shows up in your activity. Additionally, when there's an @mention, there will be an icon. You see this over on the right-hand side, and that becomes another option as well for us. So that's one of the things that is an option for us. Now, I mentioned briefly that we could also have what's called a private channel. And this is something that is not often needed. And so I don't want to have it be something that's that you have a whole bunch of those. But as I mentioned, we don't necessarily want to have so many different teams. And so a private channel is very much like we did before. And this is then where I can add a channel. And oops, oh, we can't use the @ sign. The idea here is that this is something that is only going to be for certain people. So it occurs within that team, but only the people that are invited to it will see it. And it helps us with confidential communications. And in this case, then I might only want a couple people that are part of it. And it's just going to be Nestor and I. And now the people that are in that private channel, they could be set up to be owners, meaning that they could delete that channel. They don't have to be owners within the team itself, but they have to be members of the team. What's a little different here is You'll notice this little lock next to it. That tells you that that's a private channel. No one else will see that. That is, if they are not part of it, they will not see that channel. And so that's another option for you as you build out these teams. And something just to let you know. Let's look a little bit more about some of the ways that you can leverage these teams and these channels. And that is, what if this design channel is something you're working in quite a bit? Well, if we go to either right click or click on the dot, 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 I'm going to pin this. So the nice thing about this is that if I pin it, it shows up at the very top. And so that helps you to focus in on those parts of these teams that are most important to you. And so that's one of the nice things about that as well, is that you can take those channels where you're doing most of your work and pin them. And of course, then at any time you could unpin. But that's a way to customize teams so it works more effectively for you. The whole idea is, how can you have teams be a really helpful and time-saving place for you to be able to get your work done? There's some other things that we can do in these channels to once again improve our communication and make it easier to have quick access to things. So one of the things to look at here is that across the top, each channel will have some standard, what are called tabs: post, files, and a wiki. So a wiki is an optional place where you can have some general resources, for instance. But the tabs are places where you can also get your work done and create some main resources. So let's say, for instance, in this particular channel, I have some shared files. So these are files that can be shared in any number of ways. We can come into the files area and add and upload them. They could be attachments that we have within our channel communications. And so in those files, what if I have something that I really want to be able to easily work with? And so in this case then, let's say that I have this product launch. I'll go to the dot, dot, dot. And there's a number of different options. So notice that we could download it, delete it. Here I want to make this a tab. So if I make this a tab, then it actually is easily accessible regardless of how many files I might have. So this might be an Excel workbook that a lot of people are interacting with, and so we are able to make that a little bit easier as well. So that becomes an easily accessible tab in our channel. Now, another option for adding a tab here, we have the plus. When we add this, one of the things that we can do is that we can add applications. So in addition to files, we can add commonly used applications. And there are a lot of them that are available, and we keep having more options that come along. And so if, for instance, you had a OneNote notebook that the team was using to keep track of notes, you could actually add that. So here again, it would be easily accessible. And I'll simply select this one. Now this particular one doesn't have any content in it, but I want you to see the idea of how these tabs will work within the channels. So these are the customizations that are available to you as you are working with Microsoft Teams. Excellent, okay. Just checking in here. Any questions? Good, all right. Do let us know how we can be, and feel free to reach out to us afterwards. That is, how can we help you to really leverage and work more effectively with teams? One of the other things that is available to us here is that we can add, oh, absolutely, we'll look at that. So one of the things that we have is that we can also add other applications, and one of those applications, I'll just show you briefly what this might look like, and that's something called Planner. Now, Planner is ultimately going to be, Microsoft has announced that it will become something called Task. So it has some of the same capabilities, but the nice thing about Planner, so if we look at Outlook versus Teams, if it's individual, then the task portion in Outlook is fine. That's just for you. But it gets kind of messy when you're trying to assign tasks to other people. So although you can do it, imagine a project that might not be huge, but you have multiple people involved. And so, as I mentioned, it's currently called Planner, but that will change, and you can start using it. It's not going to go away. It'll just start, you know, evolving in Microsoft 365. That's one of the things that happens is these products evolve. And so these are what basically are called buckets. And there are different ways for us to be able to look at this, but you can actually have some main categories, create tasks within them, and those tasks will automatically, once you assign them to somebody, so if I added, for instance, a task here, there we go. If I added a task, and I probably want to do it myself, but I'm going to ask Adele to do that because she's great at party planning. I could set a due date and have that be tomorrow. And so I'm going to add that task. So what will happen is that she gets that task and it actually shows up in Outlook as one of her available tasks. She could manage it here. She could manage it in Outlook. So that's the really great thing about having Microsoft 365 is that we have these programs all talking to each other. So that's a very quick look at the idea of working with Planner. I want to address a question, and this is also something that is a helpful place for us in some other ways as well. And that is, and the question was, how do I change my picture? And so the photo is something that's assigned to your Microsoft 365 profile, but in Teams, we can simply move up to that picture, click on that, and here you see the option to change the picture. So that is a way for you to be able to simply, then you can just access it from your computer, whatever you have with that, and then that is something that helps better identify you within Teams as well as your other applications. Now, the other thing that we see here when we're in our profile is our availability, our status. And so let's look at that real briefly. This is based upon our calendar. And so if it's busy, then that means that I have a meeting or a call that's scheduled on my calendar. And you could certainly change that. But the nice thing about that is, you know, you may have had this, either you work for someone who does this, or maybe it's you, where it's just like, I just sent them that email. I just sent them that message. How come they haven't responded yet? And so this is a helpful way for you to communicate with your team members about your availability. So in this case then, perhaps I want to say do not disturb. And that simply means I have more active projects. So let's look at what these different status options are real quickly here. So available simply means that you don't have anything in your calendar, but you're in Teams, you're active, you're available. That might mean that it would be, you could have an impromptu video call, or that someone will likely be responding pretty quickly. Busy is either because you're booked in your calendar or you need to focus on a task. And especially with so many people working remotely, this is a great way to communicate, but you will still get notifications. Do not disturb. This kind of escalates it. It means you want to focus and present or maybe you want to present your screen. So in this case, then if I wouldn't want to have my own Teams open, or I want to change it to do not disturb because I don't want it to pop up and see what my chat message is, for instance. So only if a message has been set up as urgent or important, then it would show up for us. Be right back, or BRB. This is when you want people to know you're going to be temporarily away. So it's something you have to set. Appear away is that, really, I'm not active right now with it, and you aren't going to be responding right away. And offline, typically this is something that shows up when you're not signed into Teams, or it's not a status that's set, but it might be displayed to other people. So those are some of the different options you have when you're working, or you see that from your profile. And that's something that you can easily then change at any time. So how will that improve as well your communications and your work? Let's explore a few other extra tips and other ways to be able to really leverage Microsoft Teams. So we've looked at some of the options under Teams and channels, and certainly we'll circle back to that as time allows. But I'd like to touch here for a moment on our calendar. This is a really helpful for us because it is connected to Outlook. So it gives you a way to be able to, you don't have to be flipping back and forth to see what's going on. And I can create a meeting right here. Now, there's also what's called the Meet Now feature. In this case, I want to create a future meeting. And this is just going to be our who are the requirements, and this might be, okay. And I want Lydia to be part, let's see, I want Diego to be part of this. So this is something that, and you could certainly add other people within your organization. When do I want this to happen? We're going to have that be next Tuesday. And the nice thing about scheduling, now, by the way, you can schedule Teams meetings from Outlook. So that's another thing that's handy. What's handy with this one, though, is that if you're doing it from Teams, you can actually schedule that meeting to take place within a particular channel. And so that's where the chat will show up, and that's where you will be able to see that. And it's also, you have that option to record it. So if people are not able to attend, then they would be able to revisit that later. And you could put in then, of course, more details for this, but hopefully that gives you the idea. Now, if people are internal, you can go to the scheduling assistant as well to be able to see what their availability is. So that's one of the options that we have. And so that particular one would go on my calendar, but it also would send them an invitation as well. The other thing that we have here, and I'll switch over here, is we could also have a Meet Now. So Meet Now could be from our calendar, it could be in a channel, it could be in chat, for instance. So in chat here, I could have a video call, audio call. You'll see these in the upper right-hand corner. So those are some different options that we have as well. The idea is that we're able to quickly initiate a meeting and without having it something that's organized or structured. And so she's not available right now. And that's one of the things that can happen as well. But the idea is that you are able to then go in and easily have it be more impromptu, more informal, but be able to get your work done. So look at your options and consider what is possible for you, what makes sense in your organization, and what will be helpful for you. That is it a formal meeting that you want to have, or is it just, a chat to say, hey, are you available? Can we get on a call? I want to walk through a worksheet with you, or I want to look through that report with you. And the nice thing about that is that those calls all have the option to do screen sharing. So that's another possibility for you as well. So that's one of the things I wanted to at least have you know about the flexibility and you use Teams in the way that works best for you. Well, wrap up and wind down with just some other tips that might be helpful for you. So since I'm in chat here, one of the things I showed you before, how you could pin a channel. Well, let's say that you have chat from a lot of different people in your organization, but maybe Lydia is someone that I'm communicating with frequently. So I can simply go to the ... and I can pin. Now, one of the things that is relatively new in Teams is you can also pop out chat. So the nice thing about that is you're not necessarily going to be working with Teams as your active window. You're working on a lot of other things. And so you can pop out the chat. So that can either sit on your window, it could be in a second monitor if that's an option for you, but then you're able to interact with that without having to hop back and forth with Teams. But in this case, what I want to do is I'm going to pin the chat. But I also could, let's say for Alan, here I want to add to my favorite contacts. So that changes, that is also then another way for us to be able to make it easier to work with. If you had a lot of chat, notice that we have this filter. So you could filter by different to find a particular person, or maybe you haven't started a chat yet with someone, so you could start a new chat. Now, in this case, if I wanted to add someone to the conversation, over on the right-hand side here, I can add people. Now, in a real implementation of Teams, it works a little differently. That is, I'm going to add Deborah to this, and normally you would be prompted as to whether or not you want her to see any of the past history, but in this case, this would start a brand new chat group. And in your real life implementation, one of the other things that you have is that you can actually rename this chat and give it something that might be just more descriptive, especially if you have multiple people involved in it. So know that those are some capabilities to, here again, how can we streamline it? How can we make it easier for you? So lots of options here. I want to just stop with just two. We're going to look at two more things here. So we're getting close to the end, but I want to just give you two other possibilities in terms of how you can leverage and work with teams. And so one is, especially if you have a lot of communications pouring in, lots of content, lots of information. Let's just say that at any time this will come up. There we go. If I have messages that I want to refer back to, okay? So here's this final design review, and I want to be able to go get to it later. Maybe I don't have time to review it right now, but as things start being added to it, it can be easy to miss it. So I'm going to go to the ... here and save this message. Now, it doesn't take it out of the loop. No, they don't know that you've saved it, but it's a bookmarking it. So the nice thing about that is instead of trying to dig in here or even searching, which is another possibility, we just come into your profile and we go to saved. And then in the saved area, then what it will do is it will show you anything you have saved. Now it's just in chronological order. It's not something that, but it shows that message and any replies underneath it. And that is then, makes it easier for you to have your primary or maybe make it an informal to-do list. So look and see how the saved messages might be helpful. At any time you can move to that bookmark and unsave it, but that is one of the options that might be really handy for you. And as we wrap up, let's visit that command box because this is a very powerful, helpful place for you. And that is at the top of our screen. It doesn't matter if you're in your calendar, it doesn't matter if you're in a team. We simply move to that command box. And one of the things that we see for that is that we can click in here and we could just say, what am I looking for? So I'm looking for anything that has the word marketing in it. And so here is a team for sales and marketing. Here are files for that, and I could just move to that if I wanted to. So that's one way that we can use this. So think of the command box as a search place for you. And it can be, you can look for files, you can look for people, but we also have something called /commands. And with /commands, one way we could just click up here and type a /. And we'll see different options here. Another way to get up there is it can be anywhere you want to. If you like keyboard shortcuts, Control-E. That's another way. And we can type a /. What I really like, keyboard shortcut, Control/. Doesn't matter, but look at all these options here. We get keyboard shortcuts. Here's keyboard shortcuts. There's an option for what's new. So what's the latest and what's new in Teams? We also could get help. And what's really handy here too, notice all of these options for changing your status. And so you could definitely go to your profile, but if I want to say, for instance, I'm going to be right back, I could simply pick it from here and my status is changed. So explore the command box to once again give you shortcuts and power in working with Microsoft Teams. I want just to have you take a moment to think about what you've heard and what you've seen during our Teams training. First of all, I want to thank you for being here and being so active. And in the chat, if you will please share your takeaways. What have you heard that's new? Or what will you start using? What will be helpful for you? So in the chat, please take a couple moments here and just share your feedback. We'll also be sending you a survey, and we appreciate your feedback on that because we have other sessions coming up, and the more we can build these for you, the better. So in chat, please share any feedback that you have about what you've seen, what you will do, what will be helpful for you. You are just overwhelmed. No. Everything is, love it, thanks. Great, thanks. I'm glad those tips and tricks were helpful for you. Wonderful. Yeah, I love Outlook too. But when you start bringing in a lot of other people, Teams might be exactly the way that you can work with it. Absolutely. And creating meetings in Teams that go into Outlook, and also know that in Outlook, there's an option to be able to create Teams meetings from Outlook. So it's where are you working at that time? What makes the most sense? So you're not having to switch between those. Thank you so much. Look forward. Excellent, excellent. Control in the numbers. So control 1 to go to your activity, for instance. Excellent. Wonderful. Well, you know, as a Mac person, I hope that you'll find some of these Microsoft tools really helpful for you. Wonderful. Yeah, definitely explore that command box. It just opens up so many possibilities. I'm glad this was helpful for you. We look forward to, so thank you so much for your feedback, and thank you so much for your help. And certainly, as so many of you are working remotely and from different locations, this is helpful too. Want to just let you know, thank you so much for all of your wonderful and helpful feedback. You've likely have already seen these emails, but let you know that we have some additional sessions we're planning on every month on the second Tuesday of every month, that we will have these sessions. Next, we have Microsoft Excel tips, and we then will have tips on being more productive working with Outlook. And we look for your feedback in terms of what also might be helpful for you as well. So we certainly appreciate that you took the time to join us today. Please do let us know how we can help you to be more productive, and reach out to us to let us know how we can help you with your Microsoft technologies. Thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next month.